Hey guys, what's up? So finally, I'm going to be reviewing MLP Transformers: Friendship in Disguise. So this was sent to me by my friend Chris, Mount Vernon kid. Chris, I know you're watching this. Thanks again, brother. I also apologize in advance for. I also apologize for any side eyes you got from your dad or Malcolm, your brother. When getting this off of Amazon. I apologize if you got any side eyes for getting this, but yeah. So, So this was the comic that everyone was talking about of 2020, and before, 2020 actually occurred. And this was the big thing because this was the crossover everyone wanted from IDW to do when they got the rights to MLP. This was the big one. Like, this was the big comic everyone wanted to see. And everyone wanted it from day one because it just made sense. It's Hasbro's two biggest properties. It's literally their two biggest properties that have been around, and well, obviously, they're two best properties that have a massive fan base for both of them, and a fan base that intersects, and a fan base that has usually wanted these two to meet. So, and we finally got it. We finally got a 4-issue crossover, although you could make the argument that this is more like a bunch of mini-stories. I'll explain in a minute. So anyway, let's talk about the story. So the story is that it's one fine day in Equestria when Chrysalis uses a magic spell to reach out into the universe and bring what she believes other changelings to this universe in order to help conquer Equestria, that whole spiel. And what happens is that it affects a space bridge and brings the Autobots and Decepticons to Equestria and scatters them all over the world. It's actually kind of funny because it takes a lot out of... It's actually like... I read this and I was like, hey, wait a minute. This is a lot like the story Jason and I wrote where it was Avatar crossing over with Transformers. We did long before we did the Infinity Verse, Jason and I did a Jason mostly, he wrote this series of Transformers and crossing over with Avatar, and the storyline is actually a lot similar of Autobots and Decepticons getting scattered throughout the 4 nations via a space bridge. So yeah, I was like, that's probably nothing, but it does remind me of that. So anyway, so there's the story, and when I say story for this crossover, I mean very loosely. Because literally, this is it feels more like an anthology series than it does an actual comic. And for 4-issue, this is a 4-issue miniseries. Now keep in mind that, did I like this story? Yes, I did like this crossover. It's exactly what it needed to be. It's a story that exactly needed to be. And they actually cover their asses in the, it's funny because they cover their asses at the beginning of this comic with, what's his name? Patton Oswalt's character from MLP, where he's reading a crossover between Daring Do and the Power Ponies, and he's like, what continuity is this? It's like, this crossovers make no sense, and the guy, the comic book guy behind him goes, I think it's just meant to be fun, dude. And that's the best way to say this, is that it's meant to be fun, even though there are just tons of continuity errors. And I'm not talking like where this could be in the show. I think it's somewhere in between seasons 8 and 9. But this comic has some continuity errors as well, and let me explain. Like, one big one is that Spike ends up on the Ark. We didn't see the Ark, it's just here, and him and Grimlock are fighting Devastator. And then, in the Windblade and Rainbow Dash story, we see Spike is there in the crowd, and then later in the comic, he's there with Grimlock in Spike's, like, Spike Wicky's, and I thought that was pretty funny. I thought that was like, he's using Spike Witwicky's exosuit. Spike the Dragon is using Spike Witwicky's exosuit. I was like, good on him. I thought that was pretty funny. But yeah, it felt like all these stories are like one and done, and everyone. And also, I love how the ponies are just like, oh, giant robots. See, that's a new one, but cool, we can roll with it. It's not. It doesn't like go with the whole, oh, who are you? Let me do this exposition thing. It's more like the ponies are like, oh, cool. Are you guys nice? Neat. And that's how it really go, is that, oh, you're friends, neat. But I do feel like these stories feel really disjointed, because a lot of them do feel like these very, like, one-and-done stories, and don't really have a continuity plot. Like, you forget when you get to the finale of, oh yeah, there was an actual story here with Megatron and Chrysalis attacking the Crystal Empire. Duh. Like, you forget that, and this is a 4-part comic, but it does feel longer because each issue is broken up into 2 different stories, written by 3 different writers. James Asmus, Ian Flynn, and I'm forgetting the last one. Hang on, I will look. James Asmus, Ian Flynn, who most of you guys. Oh, and Sam Maggs. Now, Ian Flynn, most of you guys would know best because he wrote for a while the Boom Studios Darkwing Duck comics, and he also has been writing the Sonic comics. I think he did some of the Archie books, and then went over to the IDW Sonic books. But yeah, that's where most of you guys would know Ian Flynn. I know my friend Ace. He is not a fan of Ian Flynn, which for understandable reasons. But yeah, the comic does feel disjointed, and like no one sat down to talk about this. But at the same time, like at the beginning of the comic, it just said like the comic at the beginning of this story said, I think it's just meant to be fun. And the fact that we got this at all is fun. Like, I'm fine with it. And yeah, I'm fully aware that this is a kid's comic. I'm very aware that the age demographic, such for MLP, and a lot of people seem to forget that. With at the end of the day, MLP is not like Lord of the Rings. It's just meant to sell toys. Same with Transformers. And don't say, oh, Transformers has always been dark. Really? Because I got some cartoons that may surprise you. Anyway. So, this comic is just meant to be fun. Like, for me personally, some of my favorite little stories are, I like Grimlock and Spike's story. I really enjoyed that. I thought that was pretty fun. The story of Gage and Pinkie Pie taking on a Shockwave was fun. The other, like, there's just some really good ones. I will say, though, that, some of the team-ups in here are a little like, I feel like we should have gotten the other team-up instead. Like, for instance, in the second story, Starscream takes over Manhattan and forces Rarity and her staff in Manhattan at her Carousel boutique, basically are enslaved in Starscream, making him into a king of Manhattan, and then RC shows up to fight him along with Rarity. It's a really fun story, but at the same time I feel like instead of RC, I feel like it should have been Trax, because Trax is very much like Rarity in that he's, always interested about his look, how he, he's a very, fashion-oriented Autobot. So I feel like instead of... I get it, it's the female Autobot meeting the female pony, but at the same time I was like, yeah, it should have been, I feel like it should have been Trax, who met and teamed up with Rarity, because those two would have had a lot, talking about fashion. I would have loved to have seen that. So... that's just me, but I still like but RC is still pretty cool. RC, the reason why I'm saying RC, it was kind of odd to pick RC with Rarity, was because RC is a little more she's more of a soldier than she is a fashionista. So I would have put her with someone who's hardworking and dedicated, someone like Applejack. Applejack would have been perfect with RC. Or seeing Ironhide. We don't actually, that's the fun thing, the interesting thing, we don't see Ironhide meet Applejack. That's another perfect one that didn't happen. Windblade and Rainbow Dash meet, which makes sense, and the race is pretty fun, but I feel like it should have been Blur. They're the two fastest characters. Even Windblade has mentioned that Blur is faster than her. But I get it, you wanted another flyer to do the race, so that's fine. I'm just overthinking it. At the end of the day, the fact that we got this is enough for me, and the fact that it's good, it's fun. I didn't need an uber dark story for my for my giant talking robots to meet my tiny, colorful ponies. I didn't need that. I didn't need a dark uber like a world-ending event. I just needed the comic to be fun. That's all I ask. Just like the one thing that bothered me was how disjointed the stories were, instead of like feeling all like one cohesive story. But I heard the second comic, which is currently being published now. I'm waiting for it for trade. I think it comes out in November. But yeah, I'm waiting for that comic to come out in November, and then I'll do a review there. But I've heard that comic is a little more like held together. Like there's a more canon plot instead of like just one and done stories. So do I recommend this? Yeah, if you love Transformers and My Little Pony and have been wanting to see this crossover since time in memoriam, I say get it. It's totally worth it. It is actually pretty cheap too. It's under $20 if you go out and buy it at a comic shop. It is under $20. It's a lot of fun. That's just all I could say. It's just a fun comic. So there you go. Anyway, so you guys tell me in the comments below if you've read Transformers MLP. What did you guys think of it? Just comment below. Let me know. And once again, I'm Mr. Multiverse. I'll see you next time in the Multiverse.